It is 7:01, and I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting.
So move.
Second, all in favor? And at the last close of the meeting, we have a current public hearing still going on with the Delanar property. So we'll kind of reopen that. All in favor?
Aye.
As presenter for Delano, there was some changes to a drawing. You want to go through those changes?
Yes, if I may.
Yeah.
Just want to quickly go through all of it, but certainly we can start with the changes. Again, Ms. Delanar here. Good evening. My name is Michael Sheridan, attorney with Snyder and Snyder, attorney for Ms. Delanar, who lives at 66 Summit Road, the property in this matter. Ms. Delanar is seeking a variance for a fence on her property. The variance would be 6 feet in height in the, 2 feet in height in the rear and the side yard, where 6 feet is allowed. She's seeking an 8-foot fence around the property, and 4 feet in the front yard. What is different from last time is the side yard towards the hill, towards the lake. She is not seeking variance on that side anymore because the intention of this is a deer fence to keep the deer out of the property. And because the property slopes down significantly on that side, it's deemed no longer necessary because the deer would not be able to, or it's understood that they would not be able to jump that fence even at a 6-foot height. However, the rear of the property, the side yard facing Summit Road, and the front yard would all need to be 8 feet in order to prevent the deer. Again, the fence is allowed. We're here only for variances in connection with the height. Again, 2 feet in the rear, 2 feet in the side, 4 feet in the front. It meets all the setback criteria. That's one of the things that this board requested. The code allows no closer than 5 feet near any roadway or 2 feet near any property line. That is where the fence is supposed to be meeting the setback. The request complies with village law. There are no other means feasible for Ms. Delanar to pursue other than the variances, as the current height for fences in the village code are too short to prevent deer from jumping over. With regard to the 5 factors, the character of the neighborhood, as we said at the last meeting, there are similar fences throughout the village of Tuxedo Park. An 8-foot fence compared to a 6-foot or 4-foot fence will not be detrimental to nearby property, since due to the design of the fence, again, it's merely a deer fence, will not interfere with the light or air of adjoining lots. Thereon, the benefit cannot be achieved by another method. Again, we're trying to prevent deer from coming onto the property. Therefore, deer fence is required. And again, because of the ability of the deer to leap over shorter 6-foot or 4-foot fences, the additional height is required. The nature of the variance is the minimum and least intrusive design has been proposed. It's a deer fence that, again, it's not going to prevent light or air from going through. We have a letter from the fence installer who installs deer fences, and says that deer can easily jump over 7 feet, and that deer proof, you need to at least have an 8-foot fence, which is why the 8-foot fence is proposed. Effect on environment or neighborhood, not going to interfere with the light or air of adjoining properties. Again, merely a deer fence, not a larger stockade or some fence like that. The fence is permitted. Again, it's only the height, the 2-foot height on the rear and side, and the 4-foot height variance that we're here for today. Finally, it's not self-created. The fence needs to keep the deer out. It's the deer's ability to jump shorter fences that requires this higher fence. One of the things this board requested at the last meeting was that they wanted to know if this was a unique situation, and it is. It's a unique property and a unique situation. As you may be aware, the property is accessed by a common driveway. It does not, the front yard of the property does not front a road. So in that sense, it's very unique. It does not front a road. Her neighbor to the front would be allowed, because that is not their front yard, would be allowed to put a 6-foot fence without the need for a variance on that same property line, that she is only allowed to put a 4-foot fence. So that is a very unique situation where she is prevented by the code from even putting up a 6-foot fence on the same property line that her neighbor would be allowed to do that. So it's really not an extensive variance that she's seeking, even in the front yard. Essentially, it's really only a 2-foot fence over what her neighbor, 2-foot extension over what her neighbor would be allowed to do. Because of the unique location and the unique front yard, it really is a unique property. And I think this board can certainly take that and use that in granting, hopefully, this requested variances. Another unfortunate unique circumstance is Ms. Dillener's health. She was diagnosed with cancer 7 years ago, and it's this unique circumstance that requires her to need to keep the deer off the property so they don't bring deer ticks on, and which could result in Lyme disease, as her health depends on her being healthy in order to continue to fight the cancer. Fencing on a property would provide her with a safe area to get fresh air without her having to worry about any diseases that could potentially be brought on by the deer. Again, the request has been minimized. Since the last meeting, she dropped the height of the fence on the side yard where their steep slope is that the deer wouldn't be able to jump anyway, and are meeting all of the setbacks required by the code. So it's really the minimum request that we're asking for. And quickly to go over other matters, there are deer. I think we've shown that there are deer in this area. There are deer that cross Ms. Dillener's property. We've provided photographic evidence. I think the village is aware that deer is an issue, and there are a lot of deer that traverse the village of Tuxedo Park. So I don't think that's a question of that. Couple more issues that really aren't on point, but I just wanted to address quickly. Chapter 49 was an issue last time. We still believe that is sunset. I don't know if that'll be brought up again tonight, but again, there's nothing that in the code that indicates that Chapter 49 is anything but sunset. There's a couple more issues that I might bring up later if you have any questions, but I think finally, another issue is that Ms. Dillener needs this fence also to keep her property. There are efforts to take pieces of her property from her without her consent. Lawsuits have been filed, but this fence would also provide a demarcation line for where her property is in compliance with the code and the applicable setbacks. So request that this board, once it has heard whatever comments will be made, and certainly I'd like the opportunity to address them before the end of the meeting, but we hope that this board focuses on the fact that we are here tonight merely for variances for the height of the fence, not that the fact that the fence can be put there, not the fact that the location of the fence, merely just the height of the fence. So with that, thank you for your time.
Can we get an update for the plan? I want to make sure I understand where the 2-foot variance for the 4-foot.
This is the common driveway. This is Ms. Dillener's property. This is her house. So this is the front yard. So there's no road over here. This is just somebody else's property. The road is here, and then some road comes and ends there. So this is what the 5-foot setback needs to be. It's next to the road. The rest is a 2-foot setback, which she's willing to comply with. So this 8 feet along here, 6 feet along here, because that's where it's steep, and the lakes is over here. So 6 feet here, this 8 feet. But as you can see, this is not a front yard over here. So this property, this would be the side yard. So right here is a side yard. This is the front yard. 6-foot fence could be put on, but only a 4-foot fence could be put on her, which doesn't seem the intent of the code. The intent of the code is that really the front yard for this property here, my belief is the intent of the code is they don't want larger fence in the front They don't mind it on the side, they don't mind it in the rear, the code that is, doesn't mind it in the rear, really doesn't want it in the front. This really isn't a front yard. So that's why, even though it seems like it's a large ask for a variance, it's really not. Because again, he could, the neighbor could put a 6-foot fence here and she could have a 4-foot fence next to it. Doesn't seem to make sense. So here, here, and here is a requested 2-foot variance. This one's technically 4, but really just 2-foot variance. Here, no variance is requested. Setbacks are met.
Just village property and
This is another property. 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 That's property.
But it surrounds the whole property.
The fence?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
And this person isn't looking to put up a 6-foot fence.
Not that we're aware of, but they're allowed to. Without coming here.
Elise, do you want to comment on the sunsetting of the, no? Okay.
Go ahead and hear from the public.
Okay,
Close the
okay.
public hearing. I wish to do that and then I'll come.
All right, any other comments from the public?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, council. My name is John Sarcone. I met here virtually.
Just as a kind of a point, we prefer if you don't go over what went over last time, okay, and keep it to 3 minutes.
Yes, I will not go over what I went over last time because there's all new material here to discuss. Number one, first of all, I would respectfully request that this board not take any action this evening and adjourn the public hearing so that it can be properly noticed pursuant to law. And sent council some cases where there is authority that this is an open meeting and because it is a public hearing, it has to be published 5 days before the meeting. So that's the first thing I wanted to get out there. And I can just mention that the two cases were Hofstra University versus Nassau County Planning Commission, and that was in 2023, last year, a big case. And the New York Not-for-Profit Corp Law, Section 605, which specifically talks about notice of the date and time of an adjourned meeting. Okay, so there are people that wanted to come here tonight that found out, but they didn't find out in the normal course of business that you would typically publicize a public hearing. So I've had that that I wanted to bring up, and I respectfully request that this board not take any action tonight. Second, I wanted to confirm that my correspondence dated February 5th, 2024 has been reviewed by every board member and will be part of the record should there be an Article 78 that comes along. And wanted to be sure that this was part of that record. And I wanted to say that I had cited on page 10, section 267B3 of the town law. What I meant to put in there was the village law, which has the same identical criteria that has to be met. They're very high hurdles. I pointed out that an 8-foot fence is not going to stop a deer. The applicant's own literature shows that deer jump over 8-foot fences. So for this board to consider granting this variance, the criteria is not met at all. There's no substantial evidence. We heard the new information. I'm sorry, Ms. Dillner has some illnesses that are serious, but that's new. But I don't believe that a precedent should be set to take advantage of whether a law was sunsetted or not. And it's also my understanding that the village board is going to be taking that law up at their next meeting. So there very well could be either they're going to reaffirm it or they're not. I don't know, but that's also a reason why I think this board should pause, hear the public, adjourn the public hearing to the next scheduled meeting. And at that point, do whatever you need to do. But I think that it would be a mistake to go forward at this point. I just want to say one other thing. Mr. Ledwith had arbitrarily identified what he said was the front of the house. That front, John, is wrong. The front of that house is on East Summit Road. That is the road that has historically been driven to get access to that house. There is litigation, as counsel had pointed out, about various property rights. My client's property rights will be adjudicated, which could impact whether they put the fence up or not. It'd be torn down in the location where it trespassed on, where we claim that is our rightful, my client's rightful use. But in the meantime, the plans, that's the other thing. Mr. Ledwith sent me an email on the 29th of February and said that updated plans would be coming in. So we have no proper notice of a public hearing, other than the adjourned public hearing. We have new sets of plans that the public should have an opportunity to look at and be able to comment on at a public hearing, hopefully that this gets adjourned. So I think that was all I had. I hope I didn't go over my time. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Say something if you mind. Sonny Designer, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Quite simply, here Lorillard did not want us to have perimeter fences. In fact, he wrote in many, many documents they didn't want fences at all. He wanted us to be good neighbors. That's one. Number two is that the village law is still on the books, and it has been used in an estoppel manner by Mr. Ledwith, because he's referring people to this committee when there's reference to that law. So by estoppel, the law still exists. It's still a vivid law on this village books. And thirdly, just as an aside, the village laws, the definitions of a front yard are the part of the property which faces a street or a road. There's only one side of Ms. Delano's property that faces the street of the road, and that's the south side. So, in my opinion, these plans, these new plans, and I haven't seen the revised ones yet, but there's only one side that faces a street or a road, and that's the south side, and that should be deemed the front of the house. It shouldn't be arbitrarily chosen. And lastly, I just want to say that I was a member of a TIC committee with, I don't know if you remember Cammie Fisher and Dana Goldman a time ago, and I spent two days at the Carey Institute in Millbrook. And at Carey Institute, there's a man called Dr. Ostfeld. All he does is study ticks. He's been studying ticks for the past 27 years of his life. And he's come up with a number of studies, not only in Millbrook, but in Southampton, where a deer fence actually increases the propensity of Borrelia, which is Lyme disease, on the property. And this is because deer do not carry Lyme disease. They have something in their plasma that kills the Borrelia. Deer are big greyhound buses for ticks. That's all they do. The animals that carry Lyme disease are humans. There are the chipmunks, the squirrels, the mice. That's right. Something called a short-tailed shrew and something called a masked shrew. These are the 5 animals that carry Lyme disease. And ticks are born clean. It's not like dengue. Ticks are born clean. They feed twice in their lifetimes. So if they feed on a deer, they don't get Lyme disease. If they feed on a mouse or on a shrew or on a squirrel that is infected, they get Lyme disease. Now, why does a deer fence actually increase the propensity of Borrelia on your property? It's because it keeps out the predators that feed on mice and chipmunks and squirrels and shrews. It keeps out the raccoons and the foxes, and the hawks are not going to go near a fence. So what happens is, and Dr. Osfeld has many studies and many properties here in Millbrook and in Southampton, where the propensity of dirty ticks, as he calls them, is 25% to 30% if there are no fences, and it goes up to 45 to 55% if you put up a deer fence. So the idea that a deer fence prevents Lyme disease is a fallacy. It increases the dirty ticks on your property. That's all. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Motion to close,
Like to make a motion to close? the public
unless
hearing?
the applicant,
I would just like to sum up a couple of points. First of all, I think with regard to the front yard, I think you need to follow what your building inspector said. The fact that Mr. Grazzoni and his attorney are now saying the front yard fronts on East Summit Road is interesting, because I believe they were the ones who were fighting to prevent Ms. Delanor from having access to East Summit Road, saying that she wasn't allowed to have a driveway going down there because there was not any vehicular access over that. So they prevented her from utilizing that road, forced her to utilize the common driveway, which comes into the front of her property as determined by the building inspector. So I think that's something that the board should just follow what the building inspector has presented to them. Secondly, my understanding is the plans have been on the website. So had anybody wanted to view them, they were available to be viewed. Third, I think the opinion about deer ticks, I think one thing that was said was deer are Greyhound buses or ticks. If that's the case, then Ms. Delanor wants to prevent the Greyhound buses for ticks from going through her property. And that's why she wants the deer fence.
I'd like to make a motion to
Chairman,
close.
could I just rebut one statement? As far as dragging in some prior application about my client, trying to prevent her from using a driveway. It was a life safety issue, but that doesn't change where the front of her house is. And to arbitrarily, capriciously determine by the building inspector where it is, I think is a mistake. And I would respectfully request that be reviewed. Again, I renew my request to keep the public hearing open. I think that it would be in violation of law to not do that, but that's up to you. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
so move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Take the plan off the speaker.
At least you would like to modify that on.
It is the building inspector's authority and job to interpret the code and decide where the front yard is. If someone who is aggrieved by that decision wishes to appeal that decision to this board, and they in fact are aggrieved by it, then they can do that. But this board has no such appeal before it. Secondly, the meeting was properly noticed. Public hearing was properly noticed. It was properly adjourned at the last meeting. Thank you, Mr. Sarcone, for your comments and your case law. I have looked at that case law and I disagree with its conclusion. I disagree with your conclusion. So I think that this is a proper reopening of a public hearing that was noticed, published, posted. We have the certificates of showing that the mailing was done properly. Again, I would say that if the board is ready to make a decision tonight, and you can finish the process. Finally, I did provide the board, you all got my confidential memorandum. Chapter 49 has sunset. It is not applicable here. As for private deed restrictions or any kind of easement or covenant, this village is not a covenantee and therefore they cannot enforce those deed restrictions. That's not to say that a neighbor might be able to enforce them in civil court, but not this board. So again, I would advise the board to disregard the opinion that in fact you cannot grant this variance if you so choose because there are deed restrictions against fences.
Should we have board discussion at this point in time before we go into the 5 factors?
Yes, I have. So we are talking about closing the entire property and fence. Correct?
With a 5-foot setback, right?
With a 5-foot setback, right? Now, will we be setting a precedent that we,
Well, I don't believe there are any other properties that have a 8-foot perimeter fence. Certainly, there's none that have been approved by BZA.
No, I think there's some off in the woods that nobody can see, but
Right, but that may have also happened during when chapter 49 was available, but still they weren't allowed to have a perimeter fence. They could
Right.
fence in a section of the property.
Right.
I would just remind the board that the applicant is correct in that they would be permitted to put up a compliant height fence at the perimeter, 2-foot and 5-foot setbacks. So that issue is not before this board. The issue is
the height.
Right.
the height. Now, as I said at the last meeting, certainly the idea that this encloses the entire property is something you can consider when you look at your 5 factors as to the impact to the neighborhood, the character of the neighborhood. So, but there's no restriction against putting up a perimeter fence so long as it complies with height.
But that would be a
We have to
4-foot
look at
fence
that.
and a 6-foot
That
fence.
is correct.
so if I understand correctly, a deer fence is see-through and
Mesh.
mesh, whatever, great. So if my interpretation, my understanding is not with necessarily this fence, but we say, okay, this is great, go for it. And somebody else comes along and says, I want to put up an 8-foot fence. And it's not, flow through or whatever, right? It is, it is take a fence or a fence. Now is that can we take that into consideration, or is that a
That's
Board of Architectural review?
Architectural review, isn't it? The
Well,
type of
I mean, this applicant submitted a type of fence that, and it is basically a see-through and
No, I
metal
understand that,
posted
right,
fence.
right. Okay. Okay.
But prior to that, you had floated the possibility with the Architectural Review Board of having a, what do you call it, privacy with a mesh, very heavy, dark mesh screen.
Only if it would be 4 feet in front and 6. If it is 8, I don't.
We shouldn't be discussing with the
Well-
public at this point. All right, it's closed, public is closed.
That was,
Well, yeah,
What?
you can talk to the
You
applicant.
could ask
if-
the applicant.
Yes,
Okay.
if you have questions of the applicant,
Okay,
you certainly
that's fine.
can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Should we go through the 5 factors and then
Yeah.
make a decision? Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or the detriment to the nearby properties will be created by granting this area variance. I mean, obviously, the fence is gonna be seen by all the properties, and, it certainly, to me, is not in the character of the village.
It's not- Sorry, Jake, I can't
It's
hear
not
you.
into the character of the village, I mean, in my opinion.
I think I would agree with that, but I also wonder that, are we considering the fence in totality, or just the difference between a 4-foot and a 6-foot fence versus the 8-foot fence? In other words,
We need to think about the eight.
we're not theoretically opining on their right to build the fence, it's just the height of it.
It's that.
And so when we are asked to consider the detriment, are we considering just the additional 2 feet and 4 feet as opposed to the fence in totality? That's sort of the question.
Well, an 8-foot fence visually is quite different than a 4-foot or 6-foot.
fair.
Any other comments on the first item?
Dave, I don't know, David's.
Whether the benefits sought by the applicant could be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. You know, I know that, you know, the thought is to keep the deer out, all right? And obviously whether trying to keep the deer out is really the answer to it. And, you know, I know that, Mr. Guazzoni brought up, some different factors and quite frankly, I did a little bit of research myself and, you know, the deer is not certainly the only, creature that's out there that is pursuing the deer ticks. Right, so, I don't know really whether a deer fence is gonna stop that.
Fair enough.
One of the factors that would there. One of the factors, again, I agree with you that you're only considering the top part of the fence. You're not considering the existence of the remainder of the fence. As the first thing. The second thing is, not only is it deer ticks, not only is it the peace of mind that she's not gonna run into a deer out there, not only is it the ability for her to keep her vegetation on her, in her yard by keeping the deer out. There's many reasons, and this will keep the deer out, and there's many reasons why she wants the deer out. I think the most prevalent one, and the one that uniqueness of the situation, which you requested last time, is that her health is that issue.
I would note, however, to your point, Mr. Chairman, and it's been brought up here tonight, the applicant's literature indicated from the DEC that an 8-foot fence wouldn't necessarily keep a deer out. Since the purpose is to keep the deer out, the additional height, which is what you're looking at, is being requested for the purpose of keeping deer out. So I've just clarified that
Well, I would like to clarify that even further. By the EDC said up to 8, that's the maximum that they could do it in the most pristine circumstances. That's why it said up to 8 feet. I mean, I could tell you how high I could jump under the most pristine circumstances. I'm not gonna do that nearly any other time. So that's why that's the maximum height. She has her expert, the deer fence installer, who says maybe that's the maximum height, but really no deer is gonna jump over 6-7 feet of the fence. But they won't make it over 8. They can make it over 6-7. They're not gonna make it over 8. And the DEC specifically said up to 8, which means that that's under the best circumstance. If they wanted to say, if they thought it could easily clear 8, they would say 8.5. If they thought it could clear 9, they would say 9. They said up to 8, which means that is the maximum. And again, we're not here to try and ask for something that we don't, that Ms. Dellner doesn't need. She needs to keep the deer out. That is what her fence installer said is the height to keep deer out. And the DEC saying the maximum is 8. That's really under the best circumstances. I think that's what they're saying.
I believe what the DEC said, which was highlighted by somebody in your submission was, quote, run up to 35 or 40 miles per hour and jump over an 8-foot fence. So again,
Well, they have to have a long runway.
yeah, they do have to have a
Right.
long runway.
Yeah.
But that is the maximum. That's not, I think if you say, if the DC is saying that's the maximum, if they could jump a 9-foot fence, they would have said 9 foot.
But,
That's
you know, but the other part of it is that the deer fence does not really prevent deer ticks.
And that's one of the things we want. We believe that it will keep, the deer ticks, or at least the amount of deer ticks on the property from going down. And also the vegetation, and also sitting in the yard and keeping deer away. It's just the deer itself.
All right, whether the requested variance is substantial, you know, certainly going from a 4-foot fence to an 8-foot fence is substantial, and even going from a
6 foot to 8.
6 foot to 8 foot is substantial.
So yes, it's substantial.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on physical or environment conditions in the neighborhood district. I don't really see whether it would be an environmental. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. I mean, the applicant, you know, purchased property in a residential community where, you know, their houses aren't surrounded by fences, okay? We're surrounded by parks, and we're surrounded by parkland, and, you know, bears and raccoons and deer and other animals.
And we like it that way.
The board prepared to vote?
Do you have any other comments?
Anyone else have other comments?
Any questions for those?
Dave?
No, I see the applicant's desire and their point in wanting to have the higher fence because, a higher fence is more of a deterrent, may not be a perfect deterrent. But as far as the factor of affecting the neighborhood, I mean, all the neighbors seem to be not in favor of it, if I remember correctly from last meeting. Is that correct?
Of course, overwhelming neighbor, just because the neighbors don't like it, you really can't base your decision on that. That goes
Well-
to the character of the neighborhood, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is that's an indication of the character of the neighborhood, right?
Are we allowed to opine on whether there's any other options such as a smaller, I mean, to be part of when I think about how much of a variance, to me, it's not just the height, but it's the height and over the entire perimeter, as opposed to
Well,
if it was height over a much smaller area, I think the
Yes.
amount of variance you're asking for is less. So I didn't know whether there was any option to,
Well, I don't think
shrink.
that, they certainly could come back from us
Yep.
with something, where they only section off a piece of property. I'm sure we
Yeah.
would probably look more favorable to that.
Yes,
But it-
whereas a certain area that you would sit in is what you would fence,
Yeah, but
With a
still
high
doesn't deny
fence,
me
not
the
the
use of
whole
property.
property.
That,
Pardon?
you can finish.
Yeah, but a certain area that you would fence, not the whole property. I think we would rather see that.
Unfortunately, that's not what's before us right now.
Well, making a suggestion for future reference.
Yeah, it's not the fence itself, that's merely an additional height.
but it's the
Granted.
height over a significant number of
Right.
square feet of fence.
I understand that, but it just feels like some of the board just made clear that doesn't like the idea of the fence around the perimeter of the property. That's not before the board.
I think the
Just-
board understands.
No, we
when it's
understand
making it.
it's the height and the surrounding, it's a combination of both. I mean, obviously, if we're kind of saying to you is, well, why couldn't you have an 8-foot fence and a smaller piece of it? All right, so, similar to what the old code was, the chapter 49, when chapter 49 was in place, which I'm assuming the board of trustees is going to start to take up again as a conversation. So I think we're prepared to vote right now. Elise, how should we kind of word this at this point in time?
Someone would make a motion to either approve the variances or not.
Or what about the variances of the 6-foot, but not the 8-foot?
You can,
Before-
however the board wishes to address it, you have a request for 2 variances. 6 to 8 and 4 to 8. So you can take them up separately if that's what you wish
4
to
to
do.
6.
No, I think where they're putting the 6 in, they don't need a variance for that.
They don't need a
Oh.
variance where that is.
Well,
They could put a 6
they're
foot
putting,
fence where they have.
okay, so they could put a 6-foot fence, so 6 to 8,
In the front.
4 to 8, is that correct? Right, in the front, all right. So you can either take them up separately or take them up as in totality.
Well, I think that's kind of gets to the point of, I'd rather just on the basis of the drawing at this point in time. I think
As
we
it's
take our
presented.
vote on the basis of the drawing. And,
So the motion would either be to deny or to grant the variances requested.
I don't know, in sense in the board here, my sense is that we'll take a vote not to grant the variance. I'd like a motion not to grant the variance.
I agree.
We need a second.
Agree.
Second.
We need a second. So Nancy,
Second.
no, you made the motion, correct?
No.
I
Jay,
made the motion.
You made the motion, okay.
I'll second it.
So why don't you do a roll call vote? So everybody just,
Oh, no, we don't have Dave.
I approve the motion.
Approving the motion, denying.
That's the motion,
Right.
right.
I approve the motion.
Approved.
I denied the variance.
Right.
Dave?
Yeah, deny the variance.
I'll draft a resolution and circulate it. If it meets your approval, you can sign it.
All right, next, we have the application of Edward Hargroves, tax map number 107-1-23, 44 Clubhouse Road, Tuxedo Park, New York, seeking relief from Village Code 100-8 side yard setback, where allowable side yard setback is 50 and hot tub proposed 8'3" from the property line, a variance of 41 feet 7 inches or 84% is being requested. Village Code 100-11 lot coverage, where existing lot coverage is 26%, proposed lot coverage is 31%, and the maximum allowable coverage is 25%, a variance of 6% is being requested.
Getting into the detail, here on behalf of Hargrove.
Are they here?
Yes.
Oh, hello.
So So we met with the architectural review board last month about this project. So we're here now to request two variances, one for lot coverage, and one for the setback for the proposed hot tub. I'll start with the setbacks. It's a pre-existing non-conforming lot, so anything we do, we would need to come to the lot coverage. The bulk of the proposal includes the new proposed interior area, which includes a addition to the living room, which to note is no larger than what's there now. And then a addition on the playroom, which again is no larger than the playroom, but for that additional 5 feet of new footprint. The lot coverage also includes the new brick patio, the hot tub, the hardscaping, and the new parking area out front. The side yard setback is for the hot tub. You're proposing a privacy fence for the hot tub. It's 5 feet tall, 5 feet setback from the road. And to note, the existing garage is closer than what we're proposing to see for the hot tub. I think that's it. I did submit a letter in my packet that does go through the 5 factors as well. Any questions thus far?
You have a telephone pole, electric pole, kind of right where the hot tub is
Yes.
up, and you have guide wires that go in the area where the hot tub's going at this point in time.
The hot tub, the removal and moving of the utility pole. So the idea would be to get the utility pole moved so that we can put the hot tub where we've drawn it.
Now, is there, quite frankly, any thought about
Moving it?
moving the hot tub?
Yes.
Because of the topography, if you place the hot tub on this side of the house, you'll be seen directly from the road. We've tried to kind of tuck it into a spot where you won't be seen as much. The privacy fence helps a little bit with that. But there is quite a slope here too, so proposing to put the hot tub on that side of the property would bring a little bit of hardship getting it in.
Well, couldn't you,
By the
quite frankly,
patio,
couldn't you
wasn't
put it,
fairly
couldn't you
flat?
put it here?
I mean, not flat, but
I mean, we hadn't thought about it, but the slope here is quite steep. These are 2-foot intervals, and it's quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're not steep, but here.
My sense from the site visit was, given where the garage is and how I said that where they're proposing to put it actually is fairly unobtrusive, because of the existing condition of the property. And and given the visibility of parts of the yard to the surrounding homes, I understand why they would want to put the hot tub there.
you think it's better.
Yes. I think it's less visible to the entire neighborhood, which is probably
But
part of
what
the reason
about-
why they want to put
What
it there.
about driving down Continental Road or whatever? Yes, Continental.
Yeah, it'd be Continental Road.
I think
Where
with
you're
the fence
distracted by
there,
the Hanson property on the right, you'll never see it.
and also the fact that the garage is kind of right there already. In other words, I think it would be much more intrusive if the garage wasn't already there, and the garage is actually closer to the road than.
We haven't done a landscaping plan yet, but the idea is to do some hedges along Continental as well. So it would be plantings, the fence, and then the hot tub behind it.
I don't like building something so close to the road. Myself.
The tight site.
Yeah, I know, I mean, no matter what, you're kind of exposed, I just, I
I'm stuck.
Did I hear you correctly? You said that, the hot tub is contingent on the pole being moved.
Yeah, the homeowners are in talks with Orange and Rockland about getting that figured out. The idea would be to blend the whole proposal into what's existing, so being in character with the existing house that's there and making it look like it always was supposed to be there.
mean, I'm kind of not opposed to the additional coverage. I mean, obviously, that's something because of the lot is I do have kind of a problem with the hot tub being located so close to the road.
Even with the existing garage where it is.
Well, I said, it's very exposed. I mean, the whole thing is very exposed and,
Where the other side, there is room somehow on the other side of the property.
But then it's a steep drop.
well, not here. I mean, you could have the hot tub in here.
On the other side of the patio.
Yeah, on the other side of the
Okay.
patio. You could put the hot tub there. And then it's not, then you don't need the variance, you don't need the side yard variance for that, all right? You then would only be talking about the coverage variance.
Would it be a front yard setback then?
It's still the side yard, but then
The front yard is 75 feet.
it's still a side yard. Oh, no, it says front setback. Oh, because that's where the entrance is.
That's where the
So it's
driveway
a front,
entrance.
so that,
Right here,
that's the front yard setback.
just on the other side of the patio, just flipping it.
Sorry, that's more near the front door.
Yeah,
Oh.
toward the front door.
Right here, say like right here.
It says front setback.
Oh, sorry, this is.
Well, that would
So
be.
you come up the drive and that's the
Oh,
first.
no, that would
Where's
be,
the drive?
then you would,
So you're coming
you
up
would,
here, the drive
drive.
is
you
to the
then,
front
it
door.
would be then it would be the rear yard setback, it would be. Okay, it wouldn't be the.
Oh, so it's a new front, that's the new front door where we're suggesting putting.
Well,
Yeah,
because
this
here,
is
if you
the
see
front
this,
door.
the rear setback is 100
It's
feet
marked.
right here. Or is that what's code? What is the code on the rear setback?
New footprint, never mind, sorry. So it's a new front door.
It's 50 feet. isn't it?
50 feet.
Right, so you wouldn't, so if you put it there, you wouldn't need a variance,
No,
correct?
right. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
better there.
to me though, this, I mean, it's a wonky site, right?
Yeah,
Having spent time over there and going through it, I don't think it changes putting it there changes the character of the site at all. I don't think it's any detrimental to the neighborhood, and actually think it'll actually look nicer with the fence there than just open as the way it is. And I guess in a situation like this, I would want to defer to what the homeowners, and the architect, thought was the best solution, given that, I don't think we're setting a precedent. I don't think I think we're sort of dealing with a difficult site and we want them to be able to improve the site.
Make a motion open to the public at this point?
The board is ready for a break.
I'd like to make a motion to open it to the public.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak?
I would just add that we do plan to do the hedges down. We don't want to be exposed. We don't want to be, we're gonna make it.
Having people drive along, looking down at you in your hot tub?
we are
Not a
trying
good
to be,
look.
Yeah, really thoughtful about where to put it, and a contingent on moving the pole as well, so.
I guess if there's no public comment, then close the meeting. Like to make a motion to close the meeting? Second. Close.
Aye.
Aye.
I believe that.
Oh, we haven't talked about the parking area.
What?
Did we talk about the parking area?
Do they need a
There's,
variance?
they don't need a variance for that.
No, they do, that's lot.
It's
a component of the
added lot
Lot coverage.
Would be the lot coverage, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of the surface, that we opine on that is that, I guess it doesn't matter what surface they put on there is considered part of the lot coverage,
Yeah,
even if they put gravel.
If they did anything, they would need a variance regardless.
Right.
They're already out of
Yeah.
compliance.
Right.
And I think from a safety perspective, it's good for them to have, again, this is fairly steep, and I think, having a place that they can turn and park here versus having to back out.
I attest to that because when I visited them the other day, I had a,
Right. Actually, I took my bike over there so I didn't have to do.
do we want to review the 5 factors?
Yeah. Will an undesirable change be produced in the neighborhood character or detriment to nearby properties created by the granting of this area variance? Obviously, none of the neighbors think it's a problem. Unless you kept them away. Oh, by the way, forgot.
Yeah.
Do you have,
Fine.
do we have the mailings?
Oh, there she is.
We received 17 of 24 back.
Okay,
Do you need these as well?
okay. You can, John,
That's the receipts.
I forgot that.
And it was, you have the.
Can you vote separately for the hot tub and the parking area?
For the public.
Well, no, that's part of the coverage too.
Sometimes I don't get the effort.
Okay.
I know it's been noticed. You're back from red phone.
Okay.
Was there any comments on the character of the neighborhood?
I think the proposed, you know, they moved the pole, the hedge, everything, I think that they're
Okay.
mitigating.
I actually think it'll improve, particularly since I think they'll be incented to put hedges around the rest of it, which I think will definitely.
I mean, that is kind of, that's your intention, is to put a good hedgerow there? Okay. Can the benefit by the applicant be achieved by some other feasible method for pursue? I guess quite frankly, because of the size of the lot, really, that it's not, you know, anything you do there would cause a variance no matter what, so.
Well, didn't we suggest that they might consider moving the hot tub?
Well, there seems to be a disagreement about.
Yeah, I don't, mean, I would leave it up to them. I think they thought it more than we have, and I don't believe that.
That it's
The
gonna
hot tub
make,
and the
that
fish is
whether the
gonna
hot
make it
tub,
worse.
to me, to you, it doesn't make any difference whether the hot tub's there or there, it's the same.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Agreed. Same here.
Okay.
I mean, it might feel differently if the garage wasn't there, but the fact that the garage is there sort of just overshadows everything.
Right, because you're gonna have to be home. Is it substantial and, you know, I mean, it is somewhat
Yes.
substantial, but the fact that the property is a small property, no matter what they do, you're gonna require variances. Will it have an adverse effect on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood? No, I don't believe it does. And certainly is the alleged difficulty self-created and,
No, it's
They bought the
exist-
property, right?
They
It's
bought the
existing
They
property.
bought an existing property.
And every time it's sold, you know, it's always, they're doing.
Dave? If we forget about you sometimes out there.
He's
I'm
very-
here. I'm here. I don't have any comments. I think Campbell's right. I think that, the improvements that they're suggesting are not detrimental and it's probably actually beneficial to the property, so.
I think we're ready to vote. I guess I would like to make a motion to grant the variances as requested.
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 None.
But let's have a lot of hedges.
Yeah, I gotta go with the hedges, all right?
That's definitely one where
I read it on paper and I go and see it and you get you see very different things in terms of,
Yeah. What they're asking for.
No, I mean, the only thing is that, you know, like, you know, you kind of, you know, if you want a hot tub, I mean, I guess they are certainly improving the property. Could have gone either way on the hot.
But you mean,
I think with the fence, they're actually.
and on the other side, the height, they'd have to do a lot more landscaping to make it less.
And who cares what the other person on the other side
Yeah.
says? Mr. Hanson, that is.
Who's your thought?
You can call you.
Sorry, I'm back on.
Come on, sit down. All right, the application of Tuxedo M and M Holding LLC, tax map number 106-1-736 East Lake Road, Tuxedo Park. Village Code 100-8, distance to the lake where the minimum allowable distance to Tuxedo Lake is 100 feet, and the side plan shows 89 10 inches at the closest point of the terrace. A variance of 10-foot 2 or 10% is being requested. Village Code 100-18, fence wall height, where permitted maximum height is 6 feet in rear and side yards, and the proposed total wall and fence height in rear yard is 11 feet. A variance of 5 feet or 83% is being requested.
There's one correction, the length to the lake, we've been informed is actually.
I was there with John.
Okay,
I was there with
perfect.
John when we measured.
Okay.
So
I held the dumb end. Well, actually, no, John held the dumb end.
So what's the difference?
It's 92 feet. I think they're
92.
As opposed to 89.
93, yeah.
89, 10.
Yeah, so we need an 8-foot variance, not reduced.
40%.
Yes.
And also too is that we took a look at the code and the fence on top of the terrace wall only needs to be 3 feet, not 4 feet high.
Yep, so we'll
You
reduce
have
that.
to kind of separate those two fences where you would go from a 4-foot fence to a 3-foot fence, and then you'd have to return it to, on the pool side.
Yeah,
Correct.
we have a peer that we're gonna do that.
Mhm.
We had discussed that prior.
And good evening, board members. Thanks for making time for us and to look at our project. I'm Todd Ernst, the architect for the project.
Okay.
And I think you know Mike,
Yeah.
obviously, and Andrea, our landscape architect.
Okay.
No, Nancy Hayes.
Mike Schmidberger.
So it's a group presentation of our request, respectful request. And I just brought in a plan that might help illustrate graphically kind of the evolution of our design and why we're asking for it. Sorry about that. And what my drafting and design team has done is we have an overlay of what was pre-existing with this house. And there was a series of encroachments into the setback. And with Andrea's, really kind of diligent and artistic landscaping redesign, we're removing a number of those encroachments and restoring the natural topography. And this staircase you can see here is actually the existing staircase that was the major encroachment of the prior construction. So we're removing that. And then you can see the 100-foot setback line here, which is actually a little further out per John's measurement. This is our area of encroachment right now. So we're actually minimizing the amount of encroachment with our redesign and restoring the landscape closer to the house. And so again, it's just like kind of comparative plan to illustrate that, to supplement Andrea's design.
So this is the Juilliard wall, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And you can see,
And they're
right,
that.
we don't have exact documentation on all these different components that are in the landscape.
Meaning we don't know when they
Right.
were, when a non-conforming material was added. It was either added in part when the construction of the original Juilliard house, uh, or it was added in the construction of the subsequent house in 98 to 2000. But all of this here is non-conforming and pre-existing, meaning it was there when we bought the property. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is also one where, when I visited the site, it seemed like they're actually moving the retaining wall back away from the lake.
Right.
As opposed to
Correct.
building towards the lake, they're actually
We are,
making it better than it is now.
if you want to think about percentages, we're
Here,
removing
Andre, you can jump in.
90% of the prior non-conforming,
Yeah.
and it leaves us with a variance, a modest variance, as opposed to a non-conforming variance that's quite large.
I think it's easiest to tell here. You can see this, the north side steps were the non-conforming that were sticking way, over the 100-foot line, and it's a full story above what we're proposing. So that was pulled away, and you see the 4-foot retaining wall that was there. There's also a block wall and another block wall and a slope. So we're really pulling everything back to this existing level. And we're using, the native Hillburn granite, which is much more using the existing homes on the lake. And then I'm doing a substantial landscape buffer, bottom of it, that'll be a riparian. sort of
Okay, so you're gonna,
plant.
you're gonna
I'm gonna,
buffer in front
yeah,
of the, in front of the
Right.
wall, so you're not gonna see
right,
wall.
the plants themselves will cover like 3 or 4 feet. And then we have an additional 3 feet that you'll see the wall. But then the railing also goes from being what was existing, this, heavy white balustrade. And now we're doing a bronze metal, railing that's gonna be much more receding and less offensive. So visually, I think it's gonna, recede from
Right.
view and blend in much better than, what was existing. So yeah, you can see here, this would be the full 7, but again, my plants are gonna cover half of it. And really, the biggest condition for us was trying to hide the pool equipment. So, just getting access to that door and getting headroom and venting
Okay.
for the pool equipment.
And, I guess we should make a note about the 3-foot fence
Right.
there, okay, because that's the
Yeah,
area.
so
of
it's
what-
all gonna be 3 foot, and then as it goes in the corner here, it'll transition to the 4 when it wraps around the back of the pergola.
Okay,
Because at that point, the grade is rolling up. and
right,
so,
there, you don't have a
like,
problem back there, yeah.
Then I need the,
Right.
the fence height for
Yeah.
the pool compliance.
Yeah, the other thing in removing all of this,
This is
talking to the bar and others, this will then be natural meadow and give us,
Right.
20 more feet of natural meadow to act as a filtration for the lake. So it's actually an improvement. It's better for the lake.
No, it's certainly a nice project.
And visually, it's softening it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, the landscaping in front of the wall soften the wall, so you're not gonna see wall.
no,
right,
that's right.
yeah.
The whole point was to bring this back away from the lake and be much more respectful of traditional tuxedo architecture and that, and not have those big stair arms coming that everybody would see.
To kind of get rid of this
Yeah.
monstrosity,
Yeah.
to put it politely.
Yeah, I know, I hobbled around the site with John when I was over there.
And we gave John the mailings. There were 9, 5 were returned,
Okay.
and we have 1 neighbor present.
Oh, should we open up the meeting, public discussion?
Does Rick want to say something?
I obviously lived here a long time, I'm kind of a neighbor, I live behind the, look, I think the spirit of law is being followed here, right, but you want, what your intent is. That's what's being done, so you get hung up on on a technical variance, when you guys are basically doing what the board is for. This seems like a very good thing, it's easy.
I don't think we're gonna argue with you, okay? We're not gonna argue with you, all right?
Thank you.
Anyone else
from the public wish to speak?
Would let anyone else from the public like to speak? Should we have it official where we opened it to the public?
We should, yeah.
Yes.
Just note for the, open it and note for the.
Okay. You second opening the public?
No
All right,
need.
and close it,
We've
okay.
done it.
Okay. Any, I'd like
So,
to,
I want to, I mean, I'm very supportive, understand the variance they're asking on the fence height. I mean, to me, there was kind of a retaining wall and then the fence on top of that, but it looked like for the purpose of the variance, the entire height was being considered.
yes,
So, okay.
the entire
So,
height is
because
considered.
we have to, because to me, it didn't really look like a variance, but I guess I
No,
understand
that-
technically it
yeah,
is.
it's,
Okay.
you know, it's the fence on top of the wall, basically,
Is-
is the whole.
Is it still 11 feet? No.
It's 10 now.
Down
10.
to 10.
It's 10, and depending on how they do the landscape, and it could even be less.
Less.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
maximum of,
Right.
at this point, we kind of call it as a maximum of 10 in that area.
Just for my notes, so is it 11 feet, 10 feet all the way around, or
No.
because of the?
No.
Different heights.
The maximum.
So that's the maximum.
That's the maximum you can see by this elevation up here.
Mhm.
So it's really only the center part, the curved area
Okay.
to the bunker, and then it lessens on both ends. And
Okay.
rolls.
All right, Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, top level, the height stays the same, but just the.
Right,
the
so it's
topography-
locked into the
Yeah.
level of the house, but it's sloping in two directions across the site.
Well, it's quite an undertaking. When do you
Yeah.
hope it's going to be finished, or should I ask?
Well, we brought our contractor, Jeff Gunderman.
I bet. He's hiding in the.
He's in charge of that. Part of the
We've been
formula.
making very, very good progress. We would hope to have the exterior of the house restored by June. July. So the house will, the exterior, and we're done with the noisy, big stuff, pretty much, so.
It hasn't even bothered us. We live right across the street.
Good, good.
Jeff is moving very quickly and he's very diligent.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we should go through the factors here.
I think the wall will be on a lake, I think it'll.
Oh, no,
good
yeah,
by
it
the
certainly,
summer. It'll be good by the
Yeah.
summer. This wall will be in the summer, right?
whether the,
Have the concrete part up in Christian house first.
Then do the wall,
and then
right?
Is,
to the
is
wall
this
so
going to
that
be
mirror
the
might be
wall?
close to them. This is-
Example of the wall? I don't know where I got
Do we
this.
have a wall?
It's the Hilburn granite.
Yeah, we had a mock-up.
It's on the site. There is a.
Well, there's Bedford stone, Adirondack granite, and then retaining wall. There are two
Is that
different
ours?
types of,
No, this is ours.
I think that might be an early bar.
that's.
Yeah, it's this, it's more this one over here,
the square stone.
this square.
Yeah.
It's, it's mine locally, right down the street, pretty much.
And Jeff's Mason's done other
Right.
houses in the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same stone that's on the Ripken house. I don't know if you know.
That is the stone the bar requested.
Now, there's a couple changes in the variances requested, all right, so, John, what was the dimension of the distance to the lake? Did you say it was 93?
93 feet.
Okay, and not 89 feet,
89 feet, 10 inches.
okay,
Yeah, that's a good thing.
and the wall is now
10
10, not 11,
at the highest.
at the highest point.
Seven-foot
Are you going to
variance.
have riparian borders along the lake? My husband's crazy about the lake and he's always
we-
wanting people to.
That's
put
part of the
down
landscape
the
plan, yeah.
corners,
Yeah.
And they don't do it.
That's what they say. He says he's gonna do it.
Good. Bravo.
On the plan.
Okay, going through the factors, whether an undesirable change will be reduced in the character of the neighborhood, a detriment to the nearby properties will be created by the granting of this area variance. Certainly not. It's an improvement on what was there before. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant could be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance, not really. I mean, like I said, it's improvement. Is it substantial? I wouldn't say it's
No.
substantial. I think it's a minor variance at this point in time. Do you agree, Elise, or?
Yeah.
Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district. If he's having the riparian way, it's gonna be helpful, right?
Yes,
Because
Yes.
then you'll lose your husband will think
because
so.
now it's
All right,
swishing
yeah.
into the lake.
Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the Board of Appeals, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. It's an improvement to an existing piece of property, so it's certainly self-created, but it's a benefit. I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance on the basis of the change that we discussed with the 93 feet from the 100 foot from the 100-foot variance, and 10 feet where 6 foot is the code. So you have a variance of 4 feet. All in favor?
Second,
Second?
second, and aye.
Second and aye.
Did you motion it? Second it?
I second
He
it.
seconded it.
Aye.
Aye.
But could we put something in saying that this was a pre-existing house, a pre-existing site? Normally, we really try to keep any building away from the lake. And I think that should be noted.
We agree. I mean, the alternative was for us to keep the large patio rather than pull that all away because
But
it's pre-existing.
you could have done this straight, but then.
That doesn't, that was very.
You wouldn't go with that.
Could have done
All
that.
right.
Could have done
I get
that
it,
too.
right? You could have done that.
Yeah.
But then it wouldn't go with that.
Wouldn't look wouldn't look.
No,
as
it's
good.
a very, it's a magnificent project, it really is.
Well, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, we really appreciate it.
Wait.
All right.
And we got you out of here in time to.
Jake, I'm sorry.
What?
I think you didn't close the public hearing.
Oh,
Please
did we
close it.
even open it?
Well,
We
just
didn't.
formally close it.
All right, I would make a motion to close. the
Okay.
Did we
public
get the
hearing.
vote
Second.
from Dave?
He did, he voted.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Vote on it.
It's been seconded by Campbell.
Closing the public hearing.
Big thing.
Thank
you, board
Thank you,
members.
board. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys, and thanks for visiting it.
Bye, Jeff. Must be really working in this weather.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it certainly isn't an
We need to approve
improvement.
the minutes now.
Oh, yeah, we have two
Yes.
minutes to approve, December 6th.
6, February 7th.
And then we just got it updated. We just got it updated,
A few minutes ago, or not minutes, but a few hours
I
ago.
have too many papers now. Oh, here they are.
Can we, go into executive session for a minute?
Yes, if you have a legal question, we can go into executive.
Well, it
session.
is about, well, yes and no. I'm not sure.
Then you'll have we can go into an advice of council meeting. if you wish.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. So the chairman. would-
Do the minutes and
Do the
then-
minutes
Yeah.
and then, yeah.
All right, I'd like
Well,
to.
no, I want to do that. I want to do this before the minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll need to turn everything on. So motion to go into advice of council meeting?
Yes, I'd like a motion to go to a vice council meeting. Second.
Aye.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 6th.
Second.
I was absent.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And we'll hold on the meeting of February 7th. A couple people wanted changes. Lisa's gonna take a look at it one more time and we approve it. We'll approve the meeting.
It will be May the 1st. I won't be here, but I will miss you all.
Okay, well, I don't know I don't know when our next meeting will be.
I don't have anything to refer at this time.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
not like
Good, you gave us 3 in one shot here, you know?
Thank goodness. Let's have a little break.
Okay, and we'll pick up the minutes on the February 7th meeting when we get the minutes to this meeting.
Is right, yeah.
Okay? And I'd like to close the meeting. Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Bye, Dave. Where are
Good
you?
to see you. I'm in New York
Are you in
City.
the city?
Yep.
Is it snowing yet?
It was raining like heck, but I think it's over now.
Oh, God.
I gotta catch
Oh,
a
raining
flight
out there
7
now?
o'clock tomorrow.